The situation is the Supreme Court moved onto their docket for early January the question of whether TikTok must be sold. ByteDance has to sell TikTok to continue in America. Can you speak to this? The Supreme Court is going to rule on this, so they could force the sale to an American owner.
This U.S. Supreme Court is an amazing animal. It was very slothful when Trump's the challenge is to get Trump's tax returns. Do you remember? Nothing seemed to go fast. It seemed to need to go there twice, 2 years. This thing over January 6th, Mark, there was no way in the world it could be decided in a month. This animal, the U.S. Supreme Court, just somehow couldn't. All of a sudden, wait a second, whether TikTok has to have a Chinese owner or not, this matter has to be decided in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Apparently, it's going to be very expedited in the way that the Trump cases worked. And this U.S. Supreme Court, I think, is going to say that it is within the national security power of the Congress to say that such a widely disseminated service like that has to have an American owner. They're going to say that Congress has made that determination and that the only reason would be if it's unconstitutional. And I don't think that a Chinese owner has a constitutional right to have an enormous platform like that that goes to over 100 million U.S. U.S. listeners, U.S. participants.
But David, a foreigner does have full First Amendment protections, as do people who are citizens of the U.S. Isn't that the case? In other words, just the fact that you're a foreigner doesn't mean you don't get the protections of the First Amendment. You get the same protections that a naturalized citizens of the U.S. get, don't you?
I think they can speak on media, they can disseminate messages on media, but whether they can own that media, which has the capacity to give the Chinese government a lot of information about Americans, it just seems to me that it has some discernible way of, I just think it's distinguished from the fact that the Chinese could pay $1 billion and buy ads. That would be a different thing if you stop the Chinese government from buying, let's say, ads, you stop the Chinese company from buying ads. I think the fact that they own that and the way that it has such penetration into the market and such information back from who has every I'm not an expert on it, but there are things that it can do, Mark, that give the Chinese tremendous intelligence. And so since the Congress has decided that, now two things could go wrong. Of course, some American owner like Trump's biggest friends could turn around and buy it, and it could be
Jared Kushner's already indicated he wants to buy it. He and a consortium of investors. Yeah,
and it could be some sweetheart deal. Having Kushner and some of his ilk and know that much about Americans, but still it's a different thing from having a foreign power know that much about Americans as they can glean from TikTok. So my Katsadamus is that if the matter is just standing like that the Chinese haven't sold it to anybody, Kushner hasn't bought it, by the time the U.S. Supreme Court decides, it will say no, it must divest to a American owner. And people have pointed out that during that period of time, you'll still have service. But since they won't have the updates and you can't buy it at the store and stuff like that, your service will get worse and worse. And eventually you won't have TikTok. There'll be someone who's like TikTok that will basically take their market share. So the Chinese, I think, will have a very strong inducement to get the money that they can and to go sell it to some American group. That's what I think. That's my Katsadamus on it.
Finally, and this will just do very quickly, but I don't want to let the week and this conversation with you slip by without at least visiting the fact that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are threatening media outlets, and one major media outlet, ABC News, tapped out at the beginning of this week with a $16 million settlement with Donald Trump on a defamation suit that they would probably have won. That is to say, ABC likely would have prevailed. But it's possible that there were emails exchanged that could have done some reputational damage to ABC or whatever. And also it's possible they just didn't want to end up on adversarial footing with the incoming administration. It's a big company, Disney, right? It's not just ABC News. It's a bunch of other stuff. So there is that. But then Trump turns to a almost defenseless foe in the Des Moines Register. They have almost no money now, right? It's not the big, powerful paper that they were decades ago. And so it looks as though, and he's threatened others. He's threatened MSNBC, and he's threatened hosts on MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, and they of course, talk about Liz Cheney all the time. Speak, if you would now, to this new kind of legalized weapon that Donald Trump seems to be wielding and targeting so many people who are perceived as his adversaries?
Well, you know, Trump went after Hillary Clinton in a civil suit and had to pay $1 million in her legal bills and recovered from Hillary Clinton zero. So he's going to end up having sanctions imposed on him. I think his lawyers are going to make sure that their malpractice insurance is paid up in full, because the lawyers who bring these cases, if they haven't made a full factual and legal investigation of the claims that they're making on behalf of Trump, the lawyers could not only be subject to sanctions, but to professional discipline. And we've seen so many of Trump's lawyers get in state bar disciplinary trouble, including this professor that he had out here in California. So that's one thing. The second thing is regarding ABC News. I think that just from a pure point of view of defending themselves, I think ABC wouldn't have paid the $16 million to get on his good side. I think the way you stay on Trump's good side is you show that you're ready for the fight. As Johnston always says, he's feral, and be feral back and realize that you don't want him to lay a $16 million blow on your jaw if you're going to be dealing with him for the next 4 years. So ABC News didn't want that. My suspicion is that the discovery would have been bad. My suspicion is that someone told Stephanopoulos, don't say rape. Whatever you do, it's not rape. Maybe you can justify that by the ruling that the federal judge made, defining how it's hard to define rape. It's not the common sense definition of rape. But I think he was told, don't say rape, and he said rape anyway. I don't know whether it was to be puckish or to be provocative. But let's face it, Mark, if you have discovery that says that the host was told not to say those words, and then I don't think that they did the kind of retraction that I think most media lawyers would have told ABC and Stephanopoulos, do a faster, better retraction right after you say that remark. So I think that, you look at Fox. Fox paid almost $800 million. Fox didn't say, you know what, we're going to fight this all the way to the bitter end, to the jury verdict and on appeal. Fox paid $800 million in a defamation suit. So I don't think it's that surprising that ABC News paid the $16 million. And I think that's all it is, that the case wouldn't have gone that. Can I just talk to Des Moines real quick?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about that, because it's a great parallel you make. The Fox News and ABC, very much the same flavor, meaning a lot of the stuff that was coming out in the ramp up to the Fox case was reputationally damaging, right? It had a bunch of text messages from their hosts calling Trump a clown, calling Trump a scourge on this country, et cetera. And so the fact that they kind of knew that they were putting a lie out there was coming out in all sorts of different communications that were part of the discovery process. And what you just pointed out is there might have been similar communications in the ABC case that could have also been reputationally harmful. I just wanted to make that case. It's a really great parallel. Go ahead.
Supposedly, Stephanopoulos makes $20 million a year, and his contract has been renewed. And, it's Disney, it's everything else. And so I think that they took the chance, just like Fox took the chance, that this thing would have gone bad and the jury would have awarded quite a bit more than $15 million. Just like Fox thought that with all the shenanigans that were being shown in the discovery and everything else, the comments I think that Tucker Carlson made, that other people made who worked at Fox at the time, they'd get hit for more than $1 billion. They thought $800 million was a good deal given the dynamics of it. And I think that's what ABC thought. I think that's what the ABC thinks about. The Des Moines newspaper, there are all of these law firms that claim that they do pro bono work. And how important it is to them to do pro bono work. And they tell their, recruits out of these top law schools, not that they work for the cigarette manufacturers, not how much work they do for the polluters. They tell them about their pro bono work and all this great pro bono work they do to help society. Well, law firms, get cracking. This Des Moines a newspaper and these other people, this pollster, they need your pro bono services. If you want to tell the world that you do pro bono, that you care about society, that you're not running a law firm just to rake in a huge amount of money, go defend these people pro bono. What's interesting about it, Mark, last thing is it's not a normal defamation suit. And I used to do a lot of these telemarketing prosecutions. And what you want to do around the country is have this private right of action so that the person who's defrauded or cheated can go and sue some company that's defrauding or cheating them. And that is this consumer protection law. Now, it protects certain people. It protects lawyers. It protects other people. In Iowa, it doesn't protect newspapers. So Trump has his free shot. Trump, citizen, with his private right of action under this consumer protection law, he's going to complain about this newspaper, which is not protected by the statute from being sued, that the consumers were deceived. And if he wins, he gets like treble damages. And if he loses, he's not subjected to the normal sanctions that he would have to pay. If it's a frivolous lawsuit so found by a judge, that's one thing. But it's not like the normal, and it doesn't have that standard, that New York Times standard, because it's not a defamation suit. So he is, in his Machiavellian, this is a super litigator. This is what he does. He litigates. That's what his life has been before being public office, litigating the hell out of people until they decided whether I'm right or wrong. I don't want to litigate with Trump anymore. And Trump showing the other side of it, that apparently he revels in litigating. It's almost like his superpower. He revels in what the average person doesn't want to do, even lawyers, not in their own lives, for God's sake, right? You stay away from litigation.
The fact that that he would double back for this Des Moines Register, for them just publishing a poll. I mean, I don't, as I say, there's no legal leg to stand on. And you said it so well. I hope these guys have their legal malpractice insurance paid up. It defies logic, but I think he's feeling it. You know, David, I think he feels truly as though his power is immutable and he can do what he wants. It's a scary time in U.S. history, I think. I mean, we take these cases and we discuss them here, but, you know, if you look at the constellation of cases, you see a guy who is really beginning to run amok, and he will have other opportunities to run amok when he becomes president.
Well, if Trump doesn't give Liz Cheney a preemptive pardon,
if Biden doesn't give her,
if Biden doesn't give Liz Cheney a preemptive pardon, I think he'll be known for just basically being so weak. There's something you can do when a candidate runs for office and says, I'm going to attack all of the political enemies that I don't like. And that's a yin that has a yang. The yang is you give a preemptive pardon to the people that Trump has documented he wants to get. And once he picked Kash Patel, this was easy. And the idea that people won't really like the process, they'll vote 4 years from now that they don't like the process, that he gave a preemptive pardon. I think it's the price of gas, bacon, and eggs. That seems to be what resonates with the public. So I wouldn't worry about process votes against him in 4 years because he gave preemptive pardons. And I think he should give them. I think he should give one to that judge in New York. I think that he's in the. And as I say, if people don't want to accept it, they cannot accept it. They can litigate it. But
there could be a blanket pardon, right, David? I mean, because there's been no charge against these people you're talking about.
That's what Nixon got from Ford. It wasn't litigated in the courts, and yes, it may be litigated. But if I were Liz Cheney and I don't have Trump's money, I don't think she's been basically a career civil servant. I think she was in private practice for a while. But before he makes her spend $1 million on defending herself and winning, that's winning. They never bring any charges, and you spend $1 million, and you have nothing but this hassle. Depositions, everything for the next year or two. That's winning for Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney ought to have a pardon, a preemptive pardon, everything that she's done up to the time of the pardon, which would be the entire J6 committee. I think some other members of the J6 committee should have one too. Senator Adam Schiff says he doesn't want one. I think that Biden should just make his announcement, give it to all the people who should have one in this situation, and they can litigate it later. But if I were Liz Cheney, would I rather have the pardon and have to fight? They're like legal hyenas. Would you want to fight with these legal hyenas, including this House? I mean, the House. And this is just how authoritarian countries do it. This is like how Putin would do it. Trump didn't do this. The House did an independent investigation and decided that the FBI should go after Cheney. And then the new FBI director, oh my goodness, he took this report, and acting on the report, he opened a huge investigation on Liz Cheney. Donald Trump, what did I have to do with it? And it's all with Trump behind it. You know that. And It's all the charade that they play. And anybody who falls for it, I guess they ought to fall for it. But Biden shouldn't fall for it. He should issue his preemptive pardons. By now, it's absolutely clear who he should give them to and why he should give them.
Such good stuff, David. We're out of time. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I look forward to our conversations. We've grown this channel a lot And this year has been a year of growth, and you're one of the reasons. So I just want to thank you. It's such a pleasure always to spend time with you. Thank you, David Katz.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.